Heb je beeld? Mooi. Alright. Ja? Zullen we beginnen? Oké, ja. Ja hoor. Hey, ik doe het. Leuk. Oeh. Oeh. Kijk in de beamer. Goeie avond allemaal. I'm gonna do this in English because I think we have some non-Dutch speakers. Welcome to this Hot or Not, the first of 2019. It's all about user experience. User experience. With Greg Nudelman. He will be speaking tonight. As I like to say, Sioux, UX is in our name. The UX part, that's me. So I'm the UX specialist of Sioux. And in that role, I'm hosting this evening. Let me see what I want to say. Did everyone enjoy their dinner? Yep. Moi. Okay. Yeah, 2 people enjoyed their dinner. Great. Cool. We had 200 registrations. I think about 170 showed up. That's cool. Thank you all for coming. As you may or may not know, UX is a given for companies like Apple or Google or most of your consumer products at home. But in our high-tech world, it's a bit less obvious. So we do all kinds of fun projects all the time. We make great user interfaces. We sometimes forget about, okay, who's using our stuff. And I hope this night will make you enthusiastic about the user experience in a high-tech world. And we'll teach you how you can use user experience in your own advantage. This is the program. This is my introduction. Then Greg will join the stage in 5 minutes. We'll have a short break around 7:30. And then the second part at 8 o'clock. And then there's some time for questions and hopefully some answers. And then drinks, so that's cool. Don't know if you noticed the clock, but you can look afterwards. We have some buttons at the stand in the back and at the door when you leave. Just press one of them to tell us what you think. They don't give that much feedback, so the user experience of the buttons itself is a bit low. But for us, it's a good way to know if you enjoyed the night or not. So, how many of you actually know what user experience means? Hands? Yeah? So this is, for you, quite obvious then, right? You know it by heart, the ISO standards? I don't, so it's not a problem if you don't, but it's a lot of text. And for me, it's still a vague thing. So if people ask me, Ben, user experience, what does it mean? Yeah, I wish I could remember this by heart, but I don't. So I just say it's something with how you experience products and if they are nice to use. But I have a small movie. I hope that it works because when we tested it, it was a bit difficult. I have a small movie of the guys of Top Gear. They are going to design a car for elderly people. And to do that, they have normal cars. And they are going to see if it's suitable for elderly people. I think it's a nice example of user experience. So here we go. Now I click it, right, Greg? I click it.
Technology Centre, the birthplace of all our great projects. And while Richard went off to buy a car which we could modify, I examined the scale of the problem.
This Volvo has very few buttons, and that's a good thing, but each one seems to do
28 different things depending on how you push it. What does my car mean? Bliss, DSTC, collision warning. Why would you want to turn that off? Look at these. If you're 85, these are just out of focus high. What does block 5A mean? There's literally nothing on here which is old people friendly. Press source for USB BT line in. I'm sure all this makes perfect sense to the fetus that designed it, but to anyone over 65, it is just incomprehensible gibberish.
Okay, so I heard some people laughing, so that's good. So to me, that's user experience. It's not only knowing how to design, but it's knowing who you are designing for. That's really important. So I'm going to get Greg to the stage. I have to make a few jokes. You can hold your horses. I have to make a few jokes because when we were getting Greg to the Netherlands, he once said to us, "Wow, I'm really excited to come to Belgium." So we're in Holland. Greg knows. He knows. He now knows the difference. But to be honest, I never know all the states of the United States. I mess them up all the time. So you're forgiven. However, this is Greg, and Greg is the author of a $1 prototype and 4 more UX books. He's an advocate of lean UX. Most of us will really love the fact that also UX can be done lean, so you don't have to waterfall all the time. Currently working as a head of UX of a company called Able, working on AI for business people. Did I say that correctly? Cool. Okay, Greg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. So, let's see if I can get out of this. There we go. Switch. All right. So I should say, oh, that's really loud. Okay. All right. I should say bonjour, right? Because this is, no. Guten Abend. Yeah, all right. A little better. All right, very good. So about a year ago, I was heading a UX practice at a pretty large manufacturer of industrial goods, and we were working on digital industrial, as we call it. So basically all sorts of IoT, AI combinations of making machines smart. My team of about 5 people, we were tasked with creating a demo for a conference. And so I said, how much time do we have? They said, well, we kind of lost track of this conference, so you have 2 weeks. So 2 weeks at that company was like about 2 hours at anywhere else. So, and 2 weeks is crazy fast. So we started working with the team of 5 people. We just sat down, we focused, we canceled all other meetings, got together in a room. We knocked out a prototype. The prototype went on to do very well at the conference, and then I got a chance to kind of test it with some customers. And this person that I was working with, this customer that looked at the prototype, I walked her through it, said, what do you think? She's like, when can I buy this? I go, well, it's actually a prototype. You know, it's a click-through, so it looks like it's real, but it's actually, envision. It's a prototype. She's like, no, seriously, when can I buy this? I go, well, if you come work with us, maybe we'll make a deal and we'll, I don't know how many, we don't even know if we're going to make it. She's like, look, I'm going to give you $40 million if you can get this to me by January. So this is 2 weeks of work with 5 people, $40 million prototype. So I said, not bad. And we're talking about one customer, right? Just one customer. So I thought it wasn't bad for 2 weeks of work, but the truth is we're just scratching the surface. And what I want to do for the next 2 hours is show you some applications of lean UX principles, some very practical stuff, right? Not a lot of theory about what UX is and all that. Sounds like you guys already know this. So we'll just get right to the meat. So get some of these principles in to get you closer to creating the same reaction than your customers. So when they see your product, they're going to be like, here's $40 million, right? Does that sound like a good investment of 2 hours? Excellent. All right. So we're going to be passing mics around, and I don't know if they're ready to go or not yet. Okay. So just think of a really good question. I'm going to start cooking, but just think of good questions, right? We're going to have mics passing around. And I want to make it very interactive because I think it would be extremely arrogant of me to fly 5,000 miles all the way to, I'm not going to say Belgium again, 5,000 miles just to kind of know what you guys are dealing with. I don't know, right? So part of kind of what UX is about is asking a lot of good questions. So I'm hoping you can tell me what it is that you're facing, what difficulties you have in your practice so that we can cover that tonight. And we'll make it interactive. I'll just keep pausing whenever I can. And okay. So it looks like we have the mics. So anybody has a burning question they absolutely want to know tonight? Anything I can cover? Don't be shy. I don't bite very hard. I'm just soft. No? Okay. All right. Okay. It's all right. I don't know what they're doing. Okay, just keep those questions coming, though. So what the heck is UX design? Well, there's tons of definitions, and Ben gave us a really good one today. But here's kind of my definition. I think we have somehow reduced design to this usability. And I think that was intentional because it was just easier for business people to understand. Like, this is what I'm going to get out of it, right? It was kind of a very controllable way to do it. But actually, it's way bigger than that, right? Because UX design is about solving these big, hairy problems. Some of the examples of design we're going to see include the first computer mouse, right? That's fast prototyping. Include US highway system that was designed specifically to get you from coast to coast without stopping. Right, that was intentional design of that. That was the experience design back in 1956, right? These are the kinds of things were designed. A light socket and a light bulb that was designed by Thomas Edison to have this kind of turnkey experience, to have light in your home that was safe and reliable and accessible to everyone. So design was big, and I want to get back to that, right? So it's a tool, it's a methodology, it's a technology. It's a human technology to solve problems. That's all it really is, right? How we go about it, all those activities, is really kind of how we get there. And we get there by brainstorming and storyboarding, which we'll try today, and the prototyping and so on. But the real sort of payoff is solving problems. Complicated problems you cannot solve any other way. So the good news, we don't have to rehash a lot of this stuff because I forget it a lot, and I wrote it down in a book called $1 Prototype. And all of you that stick around, that's going to be your bonus for sticking around after the break, because I'm going to give you a URL to go fill out the little form. I promise it's very quick and it's very user-friendly. But once you fill it out, I can send you this book. Right, so you can have your own free book. But please don't share it. It's just for you to use. I do make $10 a book, and I get a check every month. So I would hate to lose that. But I hope you enjoyed the book. And if you do, please do leave me a nice recommendation on Amazon, because we authors live and die by these. So, but tonight, what I want to do is really cover application of UX principles for digital industrial. And as Ben pointed out, I think so well with this video that you guys saw, is that there's a big divide, right, between what we think about the product and what the customers are actually using. And I think nowhere this divide bigger, I think, and nowhere is bigger opportunity is in digital industrial. And so these are the these are the tips that I'm going to cover today, and we're going to go through them all, and we have a couple of hours. So things like drawing a storyboard, considering the environment where the application is being used, seems really obvious. Testing early and often, the concept of MVP, which I use for minimum viable prototype, not minimum viable product, right? How to get rid of chart junk and use something called digital twin. How many of you have heard of that, digital twin? A few people. Fantastic. Okay, my peeps. All right, we can talk about spark lines and kind of my best and favorite spark line recommendation with the normal band. We're going to talk about advanced business graphics, adding secondary features to differentiate red and green, secondary state indicators, and then some Gestalt principles, working graphs, direct manipulation, root cause analysis and how to do that, and then how to manage alerts, because there's really hundreds of alerts a second now, and then how to apply all that in moderation, right, so you don't overwhelm your users. So first of all, storyboarding. Now, storyboarding is a really good method for visualizing complex intertwinkled problems. And intertwinkled means intertwined and intermingled, right? It's a cool word. We like to come up with new words in UX. This one I didn't come up with, but I think it kind of shows the extent of a problem today in digital industrial, because you've got so many competing demands. You got the IoT and you got all the cloud possible solutions, right? You're trying to put all that together to create value for the customer. So it really is more intertwinkled now than ever before. We have to consider systems and how these systems interact with your customer and with your machinery on top of it all. So we use a storyboard to really reason about these problems. And there's nothing particularly magical about it. In fact, we're going to learn how to do that today. And I got a little camera. Hopefully all that works, and I'm going to draw one for you in a bit. But, you may ask a question, why the heck would I do that? Don't we already have agile use cases? Well, the truth is every time I don't do a storyboard, I end up regretting it, because it helps you make more innovative, more interesting solutions even faster. Let me show you an example. So as a homeowner, for example, this is your agile use case, right? Imagine this. As a homeowner, I want a simple way to create a service that I can just call a repair person to my house. Now, all of you, please picture that. Maybe there's a little yellow pages, right? Nothing particularly interesting. It's a pretty simple use case, right? Everybody does it, no big deal. But if you turn this into a storyboard, it gets very interesting. Now, first you have this establishing shot. Hopefully all of you guys can see it in the back. Now, this person has a dryer, right? This dryer is just on fire, right? So she goes, oh, crap, right? This dryer just caught fire. Oh, merde, right? And then, yeah, you can say that. And then, so she's like, okay, I'm going to unplug it, and pull it from the wall. Oh, there's a tag. Maybe I can scan the tag with my special app, right? There's a little application. And the application calls a repair person. Says, oh. The repair person comes, fixes the dryer, and she says, thank you. And look, you got even a happy dryer right there. So just notice how just putting it in picture format, these are not very complex pictures, right? You guys can probably, each one of you can probably do a better job than this. This is one of my students that did it at SF State. But I think it's really showcases beautifully the difference within an agile use case and a way to really picture that. You're there, you're feeling empathy, right? You see the context of where the thing is happening, right? All of that is coming together because you took 10 minutes to do a storyboard. I'm not saying spend like hours on it. 10 minutes with your team, sketch it out. I promise you, if you take one thing away today, just do that. And it will change the way you do your work. So this is my number one tip for you guys today. So here's another example. So as a small business owner, I want a way to charge credit cards from my phone. Well, here's an example from Kevin Chang's book. So I don't know if you guys can read this in the back, so I'll read it to you. That will be $60 for 2 books. Notice this is a convention hall, right? So you got your establishing shot. You know where you are. That's very important in the storyboard. And then this lady picks up some books, and she says, do we take credit cards? Sure, any card you like. And then he swipes the card, right, on the card reader. And then just use your finger to sign it. And then notice that says later right there, right? Let's see how well I did. Make sense? But notice the difference between this and this. There's an interaction, right? Suddenly there's a buyer experience and a seller experience. I don't think you got that out of this, right? Am I right? You know where you are. It's loud. If you were doing some solution and you said, oh, I want to make it fancy. I'm going to use voice activation. Well, guess what? This is a terrible place for voice interaction. Right? Very bad idea. Sorry, I'm going to get some water. But with a storyboard, you can picture all of these things together. And for the digital industrial, it applies even more strongly. Because a lot of times we as developers, as designers, as product people, we never go to an oil rig, for example. Anybody here from oil industry? Natural gas, oil, lighting, energy, power generation? Cool. This will be me. That's good, actually, because then you guys get to see some of the stuff. That's really good. So what I want to sketch for you today, and pay attention because you're going to be doing that next, right? Fair disclaimer. So as an oil field engineer, I want to see how many wells are running so that I can monitor the general health of my field. Right? Everybody got that? Cool. So let's see if this works, actually. So what I'm going to try is built-in retina display. Oh, okay. Did it work? You can see it. Fabulous. Ta-da. Yes. Technology is awesome when it works. I love technology that works. Okay. Look at that. And you can see this, too. That's excellent. It's a little bit backwards, right? So the first thing we need is an establishing shot, as I mentioned. And each of you should have a sticky and a pen, right? So that's all you really need. And I love to use these square stickies. Why am I using square stickies? Anybody want to ask that question? You get extra bonus points. Oh, it's small. Okay. It's square. Yes. Yes, easy to move around. That's right. All of these answers, exactly right. I don't understand the whole, like, people print out these 6x6 things, then they have to fill them in. Then you're like, wait, I missed this step. Or you show it to somebody and they're like, what about this? And you're like, damn, now I have everything laid out, perfect. I'm just going to ignore this person because it took me 2 hours to draw this. That's not lean UX. This is lean because you're like, oh, you don't like this? How about this? Oh, you want to be out in observation lounge, not on the field? Great. How about this? Right. So you can reuse these. You can rearrange them. You can add steps, remove steps. Right. And this becomes very important because you're working with a team, or you are actually using the storyboard as your first prototype, which we'll get to in a second. But long story short, so hopefully you can see this. It's going to be better with a Sharpie. I normally do this not with a Sharpie, but I think just for interest of presenting this. So let's just say I'm out in an oil field, right, and I have these oil wells everywhere. And there. So this is what we call an establishing shot. It's a little bit like a movie, right? When you're watching like James Bond or like some interactive sort of superhero movie, you get the tum 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 tum, you get the music, right? It's the same thing. Or you're watching like romance, and it's like French music starts playing, the accordion, right? It's light evening. Or you're watching drama. It's always in the kitchen, because the kitchen is where all the drama happens, right? That's you know that. So the point is, your establishing shot is very important, and usually I spend a little more time on this, but this is fine. So I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I have an establishing shot here. So then I'm looking at a particular well. Maybe now I can fill in a little more detail here. Uh-oh, did it disappear? Sorry. There you go. Thank you for telling me. Yeah, so maybe there's a well here. So some of the wells, they use very different mechanisms, and this particular one looks like just a rotating pump well. And then maybe I'll go and pull up in my truck here. Maybe I have a little car. Again, nothing fancy. I have a car right here. Maybe I'm looking at it from the top. Right? Again, nothing fancy, right? Everybody could draw this. If you can draw a square in the circle, I think you'll be fine. And then maybe I'm standing right here and I'm looking at the well. Maybe I'll attach a little something to it to make the signal that will get passed along. So now I can check it maybe on some kind of mobile device here. I'm holding this. Maybe there's a signal coming, right? And now, meanwhile, Meanwhile, 100 miles away, let's just make it 300. 300 miles away, I have a person looking at a monitor. Looks like a chicken, but it's actually a guy, right? We'll make him more like our president here. That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. He does not like what he's looking at. And these guys have two monitors, believe it or not. So he's got two monitors he's looking at. Right. And on this monitor, he sees now the same thing. And maybe there's some kind of bar chart here. And now he can say, oh, I see my well is working. So this is the payoff shot. So this is my little storyboard. I'm going to zoom out for a second and show you guys. So did that take a long time? No. And the pictures that I like to draw are very unintimidating, because I like to say, if Yen can cook, so can you. Anybody old enough to remember that show? No? It wasn't big in, okay. It wasn't big in Japan, I see. Nice. Thank you. That one person who laughed at that joke. All right, so like I say, if I can draw this, you can draw this. I feel like this is actually an interesting UX principle. If you make things very consumable, if you make your prototype very rough, people have a lot of empathy and a lot of engagement, right? It looks homemade. They engage with you, right? So this is my little ninja trick to get you guys to draw, right? This is my Jedi mind trick. Because if I made this all very sophisticated and beautiful in 3D, you guys be like, no, I can't do that. Forget it. That's too hard. That's for UX people, right? That's for Ben. But if you see stick figures, and then you're like, I can do that. Stick figures, no big deal, right? So let's take a look at our storyboard. First, we have our establishing shot. I'm out in the middle of nowhere in an oil field. I pull up in my truck or my car. And boy, it looks weird now. And then I'm walking up to this well, and this thing's huge, maybe rusty, right? Sun is beating down on me. Maybe we'll add a little happy sun in here. Okay, can somebody laugh at that? No? All right. Jeez, you a tough audience today. Oh, look at that. I just made another logo right here. Excellent. Hey, I have to pay them back for the for the Belgium joke. There we go. Okay, here we go. So then I got the signal, right? I enabled this well somehow. And then I'm over here 300 miles away. Somebody gets a signal. This Trump-looking person now is looking at the two screens, and they can see that. They're sitting in an office. Now, what have you noticed here versus that Agile story? Let's hear, because this was a lot of work. Let's see. Anybody wants to talk about that real quick? Now, 4 plates. These things tend to be about 6 to 8 plates. This is a really short little one because you don't know anything about oil industry, so I figured I'll just pull one over on you. Anybody?
2 screens.
2 screens, yes. Very good, yeah. That's a little, I mean, that's an interesting question, but it's a lot of times your people in digital industrial are going to be very hard to get at. So a lot of times you have to do some Google research just to kind of go in and see what the hell is the environment really look like. Are they wearing protective equipment? Are they wearing glasses? Are they wearing a hat? Are they wearing gloves? Are they going to be able to use the phone, or is there gas around them that will make the whole thing explode if their phone rings? There's actually environments like that, right? This is very common digital industrial. Is there noise? Is it quiet? Is it dark? Is it light? Direct sunlight? All these things matter. Like this interface, for example, very easy to tell. He's going to be in direct sunlight. We're going to have an example later on. But look, it's obvious from the storyboard. You could not tell that from the use case, right? Am I right? Yes. Okay, have I convinced you guys this is worthwhile? Excellent. That's all I needed. All right. I'll stop talking now. Well, not literally, but figuratively. I'll start talking about that. We got lots more to cover. All right, here we go. Now, why is that? Oh, yeah. All right, there we go. Yes. Okay. Good. All right. Another important thing, the way you ask a question really matters. And nowhere are you going to see that as in the storyboard. And that's kind of really going to come out. Because remember what I asked as a storyboard? I said, how do I see that my well is alive? Now, is there a real value in that? Did you guys see that closing shot? I'm looking at my 2 screens. The Mr. Trump is looking at 2 screens, and he goes, wait a minute. Like, my well is alive. But is there a real payoff? What the hell is the value of that to a business, to a person? Is that even valuable to them? So the way you ask a question is really going to matter. And when you do your storyboard, make sure that final slide is really appropriate, right, to the question that you asked. Because it may not be. Here's a couple of examples. Kodak asked this question. What's the fastest way to process film? Anybody heard of Kodak? Yeah, well, yeah, it was that company that used to be really big, right? Back in whatever, ancient times. Before Rembrandt, I'm sure. Okay, so the way you ask a question matters a lot. Here's another example, Goodyear. How can we provide tire as a service? Here's what happens. So Goodyear equips Tesla, I'm going to quote this, okay, just so I'm not, it's factual. Right, so the wireless sensors continuously measure and record tire temperature and pressure, which is paired with other vehicle data and connected to Goodyear's cloud-based proprietary algorithms, read AI, to enhance overall fleet operations and predict when the tires need service or replacement. Now, is that a much better question to ask than a faster way to process film? Right? So be very careful with which question you ask. And so storyboard lets you really get at that, because it's like, okay, is this really the payoff we're looking for? A guy sees a little heartbeat on the screen. Is that important? Or do I need temperature, pressure, when the last thing is broke down, how old this pump is, all of these other things, right? I'm going to need a lot of information before it's really useful. And that actually is definitely the case in a lot of IoT projects, is what we find. So, some storyboarding tips for you guys, because you're going to do this next, I promised. All right. If you can draw a square and a circle, you can draw most things inside the storyboard, really. It's not that intimidating. So this is actually more than most people can draw. But, you know, I'm sure you guys have, well, maybe adding one more bicycle here in Holland. He's going to push it just over the top, but maybe not. So if you guys can draw a bicycle, then you're pretty awesome, actually. So drawing people is pretty easy. You can use stick figures. You can use this like volume person or this star shape. It really doesn't matter. It's about communication with a team, right? It's about getting empathy across and getting your use case. It's really nothing to do with perfection. Now, this one tip is from Kevin Chang's book again. This is about giving expressions. We all know about the nose and the mouth and the eyes, but what really kind of gives expression to these faces is eyebrows. So you can see how the eyebrows really kind of bring home the message. Right, you can even tell the difference in concentration and puzzled or stressed and excited, right? So it's really the eyebrows that make it. So just add that one thing to your faces, and it's going to be like 30-40% more bang for the buck. Okay, pretty easy stuff. And then definitely establishing shot is the big deal. So spend a little more time on that if you can, kind of where you are. This is one anti-example. I don't like to pick on this person because they really had the heart in the right place, but I think what happened is there's like a pre-filled form in here, and so they felt compelled to kind of write stuff, and that really diminishes the story in my it's a little bit like looking at comics. Anybody comics fans here? Right. If every plate had writing underneath, it just would be kind of really bad. So the story should unfold naturally. You should be able to just talk to each other through dialogue, right, or thought balloons or something, but not like this. So that's the idea. So this is one example right here, and a couple of tips for you guys. Define a place. Use a natural speech dialogue bubbles. Avoid the captions. This is another reason why I like to use these. No place for captions, right? You can't cheat. And then end with a natural bang, right? If you look at this guy, you know, it has to be appropriate to the use case, right? Just like ours was. There's a heartbeat on the screen. Are you excited? Wow, we got to see the well running. Awesome, okay. This guy, look, see that last thing, what he saw today? Is actually lower, right? So it's kind of a natural idea that it may not be every day, a huge curve up in sales, that this is kind of realistic. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's spend 10 minutes, put together a storyboard with your team. This is the best tip that I can give you today, right? So this is your Code Smarter tip number 1. Spend 10 minutes together with your team. It's very important, together with your team. If you want to, you can practice ahead of time and then kind of get your drawing skills, like feel pretty confident, and then go, look what I got. Look what I learned today, right? Then you can act a little spontaneous and awesome, right? Then you're going to feel a little more confident. Okay, if you still need motivation, okay, I'm going to try this. De wortel van alles is tekenen en den tit daran bested as eindelijk alles winst. Right? Oh my God. So drawing is a third of everything, and the time spent on it is actually all profit. Okay, so go ahead, give it a shot, pull up your sticky notes. This is, if you want like more tips on the sticky notes, this is this company is responsible for me being here. Rosenfeld Media, they have a ton of awesome books in their library, and one of them is See What I Mean. And that illustration with the eyebrows, that was from there. And this example is from there. So if you want kind of more tips on really drawing 3D and doing really more awesome things with storyboarding, pick up this book. Other than that, let's go ahead and sketch it. You have 10 minutes. Go ahead. This is the time. Pick up the pen. Do you want to see this crude version instead? Would that help better? Do you want to see this one? Who wants to see this one? All right. 2 people. No, your use case, right? The one you're actually struggling with right now. Like, what are you building? Yeah, you don't have to share it with anybody. If you're here from competitor companies, then just kind of cover it up like your ATM code. No, you don't have to. You can sketch whatever you want. You can sketch kind of how it was to get here. Whatever you feel like. It's just for practice. There's a certain energy. Just if you're stuck, just ask one question. Where am I? Right? Where am I mentally? Where's my user? Then sketch that. Just start with that. Then that's going to create your own momentum to do this. I mean, I taught thousands of people how to do this. You guys are going to be just fine, I promise. It's 42. Okay. So. Turn me off. Thank you.
Ik denk dat de twee kijkers die we hadden, die wel afhaken. Oh, dame in beeld. View schiet hem hoor. Die webcam daar, zal ik nou niks kunnen doen?
Want die kijkt dat nu, die ziet gewoon de zaal niet. Nee, dat kan niet.
Af en toe zie ik zo'n signal.
En my web here is okay.
Nou, dat weet ik nog steeds. Dat weet ik niet. Want ik dacht eigenlijk nou, ik ga gewoon filmen. Dus, ja, dit scherm, dus ik doe die camera. Toen ineens zag ik hem weer terugkomen. Hey, ben ik weer nou op?
You know, it is. In Amsterdam, before you get
Nou, ik heb voor die HDMI-signalen heb ik wel nog speciale hele kleine PC's, zeg maar. Dit ding.
Ja?
Een soort computertje, wat beeld krijgt en dit ding.
Ja, dat zijn die twee extra kastjes. Ja. Eentje van jou, eentje van mij.
9 als het maakt.
so I gotta get back on.
Dit is voor het geluid, dit is voor het geluid.
Dat is dus qua hardware.
Nee, valt best mee. Ik kan best wel.
Een paar honderd euro heb je al naar
Echt heel goed level. Ja, je hebt complete streamvideo's.
So, how was that? Yeah. Anybody want to give a lengthy explanation? You got a mic right there. What did you find out about your use case that you didn't know before? Oh, there's a. Thank you.
Well, I was making my own version of my storyboard, and then I compared it to one that a colleague of mine made who actually had been at the customer site. And it really also showed me what I did realize and got right and what I didn't get right. So it's really good to compare points of views between colleagues.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great example. And you know, when we disagree, before we see any customers, sometimes we find out we're in completely different universes, right? We're thinking of a young lawyer versus a pregnant nurse, right? A completely different driving a minivan, and this guy's driving a BMW coupe. So a completely different thing. So guess what you would do? We just draw two versions, and then we say, you know what? This is a perfect justification for us to spend a day at the customer site, because we really can't agree, right? You just document both. right? And then you go and you find out for real. Because chances are both of you are wrong, right? And it's actually a UX designer riding a bicycle. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure at the beginning what my user actually does with the thing I'm working on. So that took me a while to grasp. And then now that I've drawn it and I see it, I get really attached to the use case. So I think this is pretty cool, and I can really feel an emotion. I want to tell about it.
Fantastic.
Instead of just having drawn it and thrown it away.
Fantastic.
Also,
yeah,
that's the question I thought of. I usually experience that when I design something and I make something, I get really attached to it. So as soon as somebody has comments, criticizes it, I can feel personally offended.
right.
And how do I prevent that? That's my question.
Yeah, okay, great question. Very good question. Anybody else? And well, I will cover the question you asked. Very good. Oh, just pass it probably.
Hi, I'm primarily a web designer, or I work on the web, and I have a bit of trouble to get out of the web interface. So saying something like, we're working a lot with architects, for example, who have folders of files, and we want to sort of like put them on the web instead of you bringing that folder home. My question is, when you're storyboarding something like a practical app or an application like a credit card swiper, it's really easy to draw that. But if you're drawing a web experience and you're primarily drawing people behind their computer, is there a way to sort of cheat and get out of that system? Do you like make it something real instead of being a web component? That's sort of like, yeah.
I love your question so much. I will give you an example actually from Kevin Chang. It's in a different folder, so I'm going to have to dig around for it. Give me a second. But since I promised interactive, right? There we go. Is it here? Yeah, it's under worship. Yeah, I should never say I'm going to do it and then like not be able to do it, right? You know, I do not have it. Yep. I'm sorry. I apologize. No. Where is it? You know, I don't seem to have it. But what I was trying to show, just Google Kevin Chang, Yahoo, or look at his book. I think he does a lot of really good job in there. But the key there, and that's what I wanted to show you guys. Sorry, no sleight of hand today. But what I wanted to show you is there's different angles to the computer. So you don't have to go like, dude is looking at the computer, and dude is looking at the computer. You can go, well, there's this shot, and there's this shot, and maybe there's kind of just a face and dialogue, right? Things like that. Like you can make it a little more jazzy, but really it's much more about the establishing shot, and then also the payoff. But one thing you shouldn't, as I discovered, you shouldn't dismiss is understanding of what display customer is using and whether they're using a mouse or not. We're going to have an example here where somebody's using a laptop, but it's in the desert. And they're using a Toughbook, which is tiny, this big. And they're wearing gloves. And they're actually up on top of a pole, right, trying to repair a router. And so that's a very different use case than I'm looking at a giant Apple screen in a comfortable chair. Or like we saw, two screens, which is increasingly more common in these monitoring situations. So even though it's a web app, the whole thing is dark. So they're in the dark all day staring at the screen at little red and green lines, right? It's a very, very different experience. Some people turn their monitor this way, right? So they can see more code. So even there, you have quite a few differences in how people are working. Is it a standing desk? Is it a sitting desk? Is it a kind of a bicycle desk, which I can totally see all of you. I can see the Dutch really liking that one. Yeah, so, you know, the point is it's not just a computer with a monitor, right? There's always something going on that may be a little bit different. Great questions. Oh, okay, so we're going to pause on that. Think of questions. If you have more questions later on about storyboarding, by all means, keep asking. I'm going to get into the rest of the material now, so we'll just keep moving it along. I'm happy to spend 2 hours on just storyboarding, though. Okay, so digital industrial UIs. Why am I kind of keep mentioning the context? Very important here. And I assume some of you here are kind of digital industrial. I heard some web and mobile stuff. Or a lot of you, how many, let's just see show of hands, how many are working on some kind of machinery with either laptop or mobile or anything, but something industrial related? Okay. Wow, a lot. Awesome. Okay, great. So this is good. So this is where a lot of digital industrials, where a lot of this new tech like IoT, cloud connectivity, AI, they're just intertwingled to create some very interesting interplays of use cases. Right. And then you also have this rusty machinery, which is what a lot of people don't realize until you get out in the field, just how rusty some of this stuff gets. I mean, the average the life cycle of a pipe is like 20 years plus. Some of these wells have been out there operating for 20 years. I mean, that thing just keeps pumping, and it's got like wood components in it. It's prehistoric. That stuff you cannot augment, like you cannot just always count on the greenfield deployments, which is a lot. This is what I struggled with. I was like, oh, shiny metal. It's going to be all stainless steel. It's going to be beautiful. Guess what? That's not reality. Everything is rusty and old and completely seized up. That's the reality. You can't just unscrew it and put another sensor in there. Not going to happen. You can't just drill a hole and put a sensor in there. Not going to happen. So what the hell do you do, right? So that's a continuous problem with these kinds of environments. You got something very loud, something distracting, dangerous machines. You can't just stop and pay attention no more than you can, like in the Amsterdam street, in the middle of the street. Stop looking. Not going to happen, right? You're going to get hit, probably by a bicycle. But this guy is really, he's focused on what he's doing, right? You can't distract him with buttons and shiny objects. Not going to happen. Desert, direct sunlight. We talked a lot about that. You need high contrast displays. This guy is in the dark, looking at all these screens. Look at how bright this stuff is. Look at all these bright lines. He's looking at this all day. So you got a fatigue, right? Eye fatigue is a really important problem because he cannot miss anything red. But look at all this red stuff on his screen already, right? I can't imagine like all these things are bad, but there's a lot of red there already. This guy is wearing a lot of PPE, personal protective equipment. He's wearing heavy gloves. He's wearing a very dark display, right? Is he going to be able to interact with your machine? Maybe, right? And all the time in digital industrial, you have this. This is somebody's drawing there with the oil platform. So kudos to you. But that's the horizon, right? That's the BP disaster. So this is always around the corner. You know that potential, not just for liability, but potential for environmental damage, personal damage, right? It's always there in our work. This isn't like, oh my God, I can't listen to my latest song in Pandora. Oh my God, my stupid Facebook just doesn't load anymore. I don't get the signal, right? This is life or death stuff. This is very different kind of work. So here's a typical display that we see. This is from American Industrial Systems. So I'm going to pick on it a little bit, but it has a few issues. Anybody want to call out a few issues? So this is a little test before and after. Somebody in the back there. What is it? Needlessly complex. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, probably, maybe. I don't know. Some of these things are pretty complicated. This looks like some kind of evaporator unit and a tank that this is literally mounted on the side of the machine. So it's isolating just the part of the machine that the person is responsible for. Anybody else? Has a lot of decorations, yes. A lot of chart junk, yes. Well said. We're going to cover that in more detail. Anyone else? Yes. Yeah, needless skeuomorphism, right? It's basically trying to mimic materials here, right? All these rivets. I just love this, like riveted panel. It's riveting. I'll be here all week. Yeah, so you know, there's a few issues here, but you know, this is what we're dealing with. This is not that simple. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of buttons here. I don't know if this is interactive or not, but this is clearly a touch display. So let's look at another example. This is another example. This is from, actually, believe it or not, this is from one of the leading industrial companies. And it's an interface that was supposed to be used in, ta-da, direct sunlight in the desert. A bit of a problem, right? I'd say so. And this is really from a company that should have known better. I'm not going to name them. They know who they are. They know what they did. They know what they did. So my tip to you, number 2 tip, is to kind of really consider where the interface is going to be used. But you can see how the storyboard, right, fits into this very well, because you have to make some assumptions when you draw that. So drawing is all profit. Van Gogh was exactly right. Okay, so onward. So you may think your users are harder to find than rosafarbenen einhorns. But seriously, user testing is really paramount. You got to be able to find them, even though they're just like pink unicorns. You can still do it. This is how you would be able to do it. So some of the ideas include trade shows. If you go to the trade shows where people sell stuff, you can actually sneak in some conversations with our customers. You can organize user research panels if you have some budget. We also call these like friendly customer panels, right? That say, hey, we were thinking about this. Is this okay? Is this going to solve a real problem for you? Right? You may not want to show them the storyboard you drew, but you can make one professionally and say, does that story even ring a bell for you guys? Right? Is this solving a real problem? You can do remote usability studies. This is especially helpful if your customers are like, sorry, out in an oil rig somewhere. Online surveys, and then finally bring in the experts.